Welcome to the Trustbound Podcast. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Trustbound Podcast, episode 9 now. This time around with a person. When 2026 started, I didn't know that this individual, this gentleman, Paul Gladen, it's so awesome to have you here. You're so famous in Montana. It sounds like everybody in Montana knows your name.
Not a lot of people in Montana, so it's a lower bar to hit fame.
Thank you so much for being here. Very fun to be having this conversation with you today. I guess for folks tuning in, Paul, tell us a little bit about you and I guess why you're so famous in Montana.
So Paul Gladen grew up in the UK. Started my career in the accounting profession with one of the global accounting firms. It took me to New York, kind of in 2001. Actually, was there just a couple of weeks before September 11 happened. Then my career took me. Well, actually, one of my best friends from university in the UK, he met his wife in London. She was American. They moved out to the US. He got a PhD. Got hired at the University of Montana, which is in Missoula, Montana. So they moved there in Missoula in about 2004, and sort of things in my career. Was doing some consulting, freelance consulting work, and was coming out to Montana a couple of times to meet with David and his wife and just visit. And on one of those trips, I was chatting about an idea I had to start a business, and Dave was like, "Oh, I've got a non-traditional student who's got some business ideas that sound similar. So maybe you guys should chat." So we did. So I ended up starting a business called MuseView. I was still in New York. My business partner, Todd, was in Missoula. And I'd come back and forth. This was sort of about 2006, 2007. I'd come back and forth 2 or 3 times, visit David, catch up with my business partner, Todd. We were hiring. We I think, preceded sort of a lot of the remote work era, and we hired stay-at-home moms living in sort of near Missoula, who were essentially kind of tagging data for us. We were scraping content from kind of leading consulting, accounting, kind of law firm websites, and then they would tag it based on industry, et cetera, et cetera. So we running that business, and I was coming back and forth to Missoula, and one thing led to another. I'm like, do I want to be in New York? It's expensive. I don't really need to be there. So I moved to Missoula, Montana in 2008 through my friend David, who was teaching at the College of Business at the University of Montana. Sort of got to meet a couple of the other faculty there. Sort of somehow, really by accident, sort of got known as this entrepreneurial guy, got invited to kind of be a judge at their business plan competition. And then also really by accident, and I know we're going to sort of talk probably a little bit about sort of relationship, sort of networks and things, ended up starting a group called the Hellgate Venture Network, which was an entrepreneurial, it's a sort of peer support kind of community for entrepreneurs in Missoula. So that's really, I guess, if anything, was sort of the start of what kind of helped me become famous in Montana. And then essentially, and that progressed into me being hired at the University of Montana in 2014 to run a program called the Blackstone Launchpad, which was a sort of student entrepreneurship program, but we worked extensively with alumni. And that role evolved into overseeing a broader set of economic and workforce development programs. So I've been sort of very connected around the state, just trying to move the needle kind of economically, create more economic opportunity for people. So it was a longish answer to a simple question.
Awesome. That sounds incredibly rewarding and amazing, and it's funny because you just mentioned that you know these things happen by accident, and I
Totally.
guess funny enough, I think that's how if we I feel that the funnest things in life and business included uh happen when you don't plan it.
Right.
In a previous episode, I even talked about how I met my wife,
Mm.
and it was just coincidence. We ended up, it was
Absolutely.
the World Cup, and she has a Japanese background. I'm Colombian, and curiously enough, the first game of that World Cup that Colombia played
Hmm.
was against Japan. That
Right.
Colombia lost 2-1, and that was the first time that I ever saw her. And she ended up in Boston because I lived in Boston for like 14 years.
Yeah, yeah.
She ended up in Boston because of a family friend that used to work at HubSpot.
Mm.
And I think it's funny how just most things in life, or the funnest things in life, and I guess the most rewarding happen when we don't plan them, when we
Right.
just let things flow. Um,
Yeah, no,
Very
there's a
interesting.
saying, I think it was Eisenhower or something, kind of, um, plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. And I think what's intended behind that is creating some kind of an intent
Mm,
puts you in situations, right?
right.
Having a plan, the plan never goes to plan, right? But having a plan triggers you to do something that
Mm,
creates opportunity, and then it's opportunity that opens up kind of new things, right? I mean, I never had a plan to start a business. I never had a plan to move to Montana, but I was exploring. I mean, this is probably a lot of what gets me going, gets me excited, is just kind of exploring ideas and curiosity, and that
mm,
leads to conversations that lead to what ifs, that lead to let's try something. So that's, yeah. I mean, even the Hellgate Venture Network, which I mentioned. I mean, literally I went to a workshop at a hotel, kind of in downtown Missoula. There was a 1 day workshop. There was a venture capitalist who was like, how to raise money, and I'd started this business with Todd and kind of, frankly, didn't know anywhere near as much as I do about entrepreneurship kind of now. And we're like, oh, well, maybe I was bootstrapping it, and like, well, maybe we're going
mm,
to go raise some money. So I'll go to the workshop and find out. And there were like 100 people, this workshop, and it's April 2009, kind of sort of post the kind of real estate kind of collapse and everything. So the
mm,
economy's not good. And I ended up chatting with Lady Dawn McGee, who I ended up co-founding the Hellgate Venture Network with. She'd just been hired to run a family office in Missoula. So she was sort of curious what was going on in the kind of the startup space. And we both sort of were relatively new to town. She'd only moved to Missoula sort of 2008 as well. And we're like, who are all these people? I mean, Missoula's a town of like 80,000 people. So, I mean, I know people in Boston and New York are like, well, 100 people is not nothing, right? But in Missoula, it's like, we're 100 people trying to do stuff. So we were afterwards like, well, let's just try to figure out who some of these people are and see if they want to meet up again. So we just literally said, we created a LinkedIn group that still exists today, Hellgate Venture Network, and said, hey, if you're interested in sort of entrepreneurship, we're going to meet at the bar at this hotel again next Thursday, 4 o'clock, come along. And a bunch of people showed up and kind of said, oh, this is good. We don't have anything like this. So I was like, well, maybe we'll do it next month. And then we just kept doing it. We've done it every
mm.
month since April 2009, except for COVID. And it's been a wonderful kind of thing to be part of. The amount of people I've met, the opportunities it's created, is just, yeah. But it was random. I was like, I'll just go to this 1 day workshop and see what I learn, and a whole a whole thing emerged
Yeah,
just from that 1 day and that one connection.
right. Like I met you through Austin, and then
Mhm.
we linked up through Junto, and I met Austin through Elliot and Rick and a bunch of people. And then when
Mhm.
I got invited to Junto, I was like, yeah, I'll show up. And then you
Yeah,
were there, and months later, now we're here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, it's funny. How do you feel that, or why do you feel that? Okay, so you went to this event, and then you guys pinged, a couple of people or a bunch of people to show up,
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
just people showed up to that hotel, that bar. Why do you think that is? It's like sometimes uh, I kind of feel that now with AI, people are just trying to push, 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 push.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then when you just suggest something that's relevant, people show up. What do you think that is? I
Mhm.
have an idea that it's all about relationships, but what are your thoughts on
Yeah, well, I think it's about human connection,
that?
right? You can only get so much out of reading a book, or even you read a book, right, and you get a lot out of it. But like, oh, I want to talk to other people about that, and that's why book clubs exist, right? And people learning, coming, been working at a university for the last 10 plus years, and kind of sure, you can just go learn stuff online. I mean, you can watch a YouTube video, you can read stuff, you can do self-paced courses, but when the data on people completing self-paced, self-guided courses is terrible because there's
Mm,
no engagement, right? People
right.
need to engage, they need to explore ideas with other people. Um, and I mean, I've been sort of spending, I mean, a significant portion of probably the last sort of 15, 18 months trying to sort of to follow AI, to dabble in it. I'm not a tech person. I love
Mm,
technology. I love using technology. I've worked with technology a lot, but I don't never been able to code. But I really want to understand, well, what is this new wave of technology? And every time, and nothing I've seen or heard today changes this, that I think AI at the end of the day will actually drive us to be able to spend more time focusing on human relationships and human interaction,
mm,
because it will take sort of the routine, it will take the kind of the busy work and free us up to have conversation. Because that's the end of the day. It's like, why do we work? At least most of us. I mean, some people work just because they love working. I love working too, but I also love having doing that so I can have time to go to travel, to kind of spend time with friends and family. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're all, as humans, we're all driven back to some form of human connection, and even in our work, if we can get that human connection kind of through our work, right? Even I work from home a lot, but I still enjoy.
mm.
I got an office location still at the university. I can go in there anytime I like, catch up with kind of colleagues. There's so yeah, it's all about human connection. So,
That,
but I also joke with it. Well, Hellgate Venture Network, I joked that I sort of started to find other people to drink beer with, um, and I've been very successful at that. But it's like, because I was relatively new to town, I mean, I had my friend David, my business partner, and kind of a few other people at the College of Business, but I still didn't know that many. So it was a great opportunity to network and sort of create new friends, which absolutely kind of had several really good friends come out of creating that network. So
absolutely. Like Brian Franklin said, beer is proof that God wants us to be happy. No, I love what you're saying, and for people listening in, I've been in tech my entire career, and I've been in sales my entire career as well. And of course, early in my career, I didn't realize this. I guess I had to uh, r- like mature or like find out about it uh,
hmm
across the years. And even when I started, of course, I realized about it when I was a rep, and then when I started
hmm
coaching other folks, and then eventually, I guess, naturally moved to people leadership. I and I tell people all the time because I love working with founders and meeting founders and just like being part of funds and all that stuff.
hmm
Um, Work is incredibly rewarding, and I guess early in my career, the mistake that I made, that I guess we all make it, was just seeing my job as a job,
Yep.
but not as a vehicle uh,
hmm
to fund my life, not
hmm
just monetarily, but like
hmm
on the purpose side of things and the joy
Yep.
side of things. It's like I tell people all the time, it's like most of our day we spend it working, right?
hmm
So we must do things that we enjoy, that we have
hmm
fun doing. Of course, there are going to be days that, and months and years that are going to suck and are not going to be that enjoyable and are going to be very stressful. But um, like the the time that we spend working, that's also part of our identity. So
Absolutely.
taking that and using it to fuel our personal life, our personal relationships.
hmm
Like I just said, it's like I met my wife through a work friend. Uh, my and for the people that have been following along, I think I've talked about HubSpot in every single episode. And if not, in almost all of them. And I think it's pretty clear that HubSpot, um, my time at HubSpot just is one of the core elements of uh, my life, not just a professional,
Hmm.
but as a person, because I
Hmm.
met, people that were strangers, became coworkers, and became, not just mentors, but, lifetime friends. And I
Hmm.
met them at HubSpot or through HubSpot. So that's what I would encourage people that just see work as a job. It's not just
Right.
work as a job.
Absolutely.
It's like meeting people for beer and just, or, Austin talked about how he met Matt Roberge, and then
Hmm.
something that started related to work ended up in fly
Hmm.
fishing, and just a great relationship, I
Hmm.
guess, just forming out of that. So I, it's funny. It's like I would love for us to count. I guess in this case the beer
Right.
that we've drank with people. And one of the reasons I started this podcast and itogai in the first place is um, so that's a made up word, right? I wanted to honor my wife and her Japanese
Right.
lineage. Ito means thread in Japanese, and gai is short for ikigai, for
Hmm. Hmm.
purpose for being. And I realized that what I absolutely love to do is connecting people. And the
Hmm.
concept and the mission around itogai is to thread purposeful connections
Right.
so trust can scale,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is so incredibly
Absolutely.
important when we think about relationships. But on the flip side, it's sometimes also kind of draining. Like I in the sense that I would love to be everywhere. I would love to drink beer with and
Hmm.
wine and travel to all of these places and be with
Hmm.
everybody and I guess like give as many people possible my time. And I don't know how many founders you've met and how many beers you've drank over the years. uh and I'm learning as I go as well. I don't have like a system for it, but I would love your takes. Like, how do you decide, who gets your time, uh, who
Hmm.
gets your energy,
Sure.
and I guess I
Yeah.
don't
I
want to
think.
use the word limit, but yeah, how do you?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
certainly if I reflect, the role I had at the university around the Blackstone Launchpad was, I mean,
Mm,
it's a super interesting role because in some ways my job was to do that. My job was to sit down with entrepreneurs, to listen to them, to listen to their ideas, to help give them some feedback, give them some ideas, some direction about sort of what to do next. Um, so in some ways, I was in that fortunate position of exploring that. But the good thing about doing that in an entrepreneurial context was that we would help them identify some next steps, but it was
mm,
always up to them, right, about whether to do those next steps, right? I mean, I still remember the first time I started a business, and first time I was like, okay, this is a key decision. It's like, oh, there's no one I have to go ask permission from, but there's also no one to tell me which is the right decision. So to me, that's in some ways probably where my relationships flow, right? Is where you get that interaction, right? So
mm,
when it was just with kind of early stage entrepreneurs, it's when if they decide to come back, and sometimes then maybe they just didn't find what I told them helpful or kind of didn't connect for them. But there were others where it's like one, we'd be meeting on a weekly basis or every couple of weeks. And there'll be others who'll go away for 6 months and then they come back and like, okay, you told me a bunch of these things, or we discussed some things. I've been working on them now. Here's where I'm at, right? So I just always love that, and many of them, seeing them build start businesses here in Missoula. Like literally one of them is a bar. It's called the Dram Shop. If you ever come to Missoula, you should go to the Dram Shop. Loved working with Zach, the he and his wife started that business. We literally built his financial model sitting around my kitchen island at home because he was working for a brewery and like didn't want to tell them what he was working on. So kind of he'd bring a 6 pack from the brewery and we'd work on his business plan. But I've spent so many hours in the dram shop networking with other people in the community, with other entrepreneurs, and talking kind of through those things. But yeah, I think like all relationships, right? You have to invest, but you're looking at least for some investment in return. It doesn't have to
Mm,
be exactly at the same time, right? I'm very much believer. I joined a networking group when I was in New York called the Gotham City Networking or something. I forget the name. It's a long time ago now, but their motto was "What goes around comes around." And
mm,
then I know like Brad Feld. Many people know Brad, kind of as the sort of the startup kind of ecosystem guy. Wrote the book on startup communities. I mean, he wrote another book recently called Give First. So that sort of philosophy of like, look, I'm more than happy to give my time. There you go. I'm more
a
than happy to give
friend,
my time.
a friend gave me this book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Um, so, so the idea of I'm happy to give anyone pretty much who reaches out, saying, "Hey, can we grab a coffee, or can I get 30 minutes? Can we grab a beer?" I'll always happily do that first meeting with them, and then like we'll see is there some mutual kind of interest and benefit in continuing that. But when it happens and when it continues, then as we've talked about already, kind of those things foster sort of they spawn new connections and new opportunities and new ideas. I mean, that's what I kind of love chatting with people. Is even it's funny, I was been playing around with Claude Code and working on a bunch of stuff. And I was doing it yesterday and went onto LinkedIn to look up something, and a good friend, sort of former colleague of mine, Mario, was just posting he'd spent his whole weekend kind of working on Claude Code, and I'm like, oh, we should kind of compare notes. So he like pinged me an hour later and it's like, hey, you want to go grab a beer this evening? So it's like it's funny we're using AI to sort of do all this stuff, but we still wanted to go have a beer and talk about how amazing it is the stuff we can build with Claude Code. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, like, going back to one of the things that you said as we started this episode, and I fully agree with you. I think that AI is going to be, and it is very powerful
Mm-hmm.
and mission critical. And I think it's going to, it's like, and I'm just thinking about so many movie references. I think it is going to be, and it is becoming, the worst and the best thing that can happen to
Mm-hmm.
us,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's in the way that you use it. You can either
Right.
use it for good,
Uh-huh.
like to do great things, or to do very shitty things.
Yes.
And in my mind, precisely what you said. I think it's going to allow us and empower us to just um, automate a bunch of the things that
Mm-hmm.
we used to do manually, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that it cannot automate, because it cannot process emotion, and let's
Right.
hope that it will never be able to process emotion, because in that case it'll be like the Matrix in real life. um but I think it's up to us to free up our
Mm-hmm.
time and just be more present for
Mm-hmm.
our people and our relationships, and
Mm-hmm.
invest in, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like my wife loves to garden, right? We have, like, I don't know, like 20 plants in in our home. And she, of course, depends on the plant, but at least once every couple of days, depending on the plant,
Sure.
you have to water the plant.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you stop watering the plant, of course, the plant dies, and or it doesn't bloom, or if
Mm-hmm.
it does bloom, it doesn't bloom as pretty as it should.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very similar with relationships, man. It's like some relationships, and I actually talked about this with a great friend that we met in college, Walter, that if you don't necessarily sometimes need to like water a plant or add value to a relationship on a daily
Hmm.
basis or a weekly
Hmm.
basis.
Yeah.
Sometimes months can go by
Yeah.
and time stands still, and the relationship is so strong that it's
Sure.
as if you stop speaking for months and then you speak again, and it's
Hmm.
as if time just
Totally.
never went by. And that is an indication of such a strong relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really depends on the relationship, of course, but I think that AI will not be able to water the plant for us.
No, I mean AI can't have that relationship for you. But what it
Exactly.
can do, which I think is super powerful, and is what I'm starting to use kind of Claude Code and things for, and I mean this ties strongly to what you're building with itogai, right? Is how do I make sure I'm not kind of missing out on kind of following up
Mm,
with people that I do want to connect with? That we get
right.
busy, we forget to do stuff. And you're right, the relationship will still be there if I pick it up in 6 months. But did I want to leave it for 6 months? Right?
Exactly.
Or would I
Mm,
rather, oh, hang on, no, I would love to grab another beer with Mauricio. It's like, let's remind me to go set that up, right? Because it's not lack of intent. It is we get busy, but that's what I'm really seeing AI is in some ways the more it can help me just be better with my time. I'm brilliant at procrastinating. I mean, if you could make lots of money procrastinating, I'd be very, very rich. Um, but what I'm using AI is to sort of get me out of that, right? If
right.
there's a book I read just recently by Steve Chandler and Trevor Timbeck, which is great about the power of systems. They mostly use it in a coaching context, but in effect, it sort of says we spend a lot of time in this sort of, should I do this? Should I do that? And it's like, sure, sometimes thinking is beneficial, but at the end of the day, mostly, and this is sort of very much an entrepreneurial thing as well, it's like, just go do it, right? Start the experiment, kind of take a step, take an action. Usually when I procrastinate and I keep putting stuff off and then I get into it, like, oh, something I kept putting off because I thought it was going to be 3 hours and a nightmare to figure out, and kind of 20 minutes later, it's done. So AI's ability to help me keep track of what I need to work on, help me prioritize that, keep me on task. By doing that, I'm actually much more productive, which frees up the time to go spend more time with kind of people and friends and kind of connections that I want to learn more about and learn what they're doing. So yeah,
Grab
I
beers.
really see AI as a real kind of catalyst for
Mm,
the kind of life I want to lead and the kind of the people I want to build relationships with.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you know, so you said that you've been using clock code to try to make it easier for you. And I'm a massive procrastinator myself, and I've been using Claude Code, and I did use it over the weekend to like help me with like some
Yeah.
tasks as
Uh-huh.
well, which is quite interesting. It sounds like we're in the similar boat.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to using AI to try to manage your relationships, what do you feel that is broken or that we may be missing about relationship tools today, or the way how we think about AI and
Hmm.
relationship themselves?
Um, well, I think I mean, particularly as I get older, just remembering kind of, particularly less, I mean, there are obviously a bunch of close relationships. You don't need any refresher on kind of where that relationship stands, but
Hmm.
particularly more in a sort of business context, you've met people. And I mean, I think again, this sort of plays back to itogai. It's like kind of, well, where did I meet them? What sort of interactions have I had? Um, so it's not that I want AI. I mean, I'm probably going to do this. I've got a number of sort of prospects in my pipeline for one of my businesses that I've connected it to my Gmail, and I'm going to have it like just go back through the email correspondence, just draw out, is there anything in there that kind of maybe I've missed, maybe I've forgotten? Help me think about what should be my next step there. Not because I mean, sure, I might get it to draft something, but it's like
Hmm.
not that I'm going to automate it. It's just like help me just think through where am I in this sort of engagement with this potential kind of client.
Hmm.
So that's certainly one use case, which is fairly transactional, but still, I know the only way. that opportunities can progress is by building a relationship. So, what is there in our relationship to date that I can draw upon that may help me think about kind of what the next hook is or the next conversation is in that. But then I think the other pieces, which you and I talked about, I mean, I got 4,500 contacts in LinkedIn, right? Because of the role, because I was famous in Montana, pretty much anyone that connected with me in LinkedIn in Montana, right, was a student, was someone kind of in a small business or in kind of local government. We just connected on LinkedIn. So there's a whole bunch of people in there that I really don't know very
Mhm.
well, if at all, but a bunch of people that I do and a bunch of people that I had really good engagement and interaction with, maybe over a multi-year period, and then circumstances took our paths in different directions. So really having sort of using AI to help me kind of think through managing those relationships, help me think about who do I want to reconnect with, who, if I'm exploring a particular topic or a particular area, or I'm working with a client, a particular business, who else do I know, right?
Mhm.
What have they been talking about in those areas? So there's just so much potential, so much stuff that, I mean, I can go do those things myself. Right? I can sort of manually crunch through, I can manually research it. But again, it's sort of busy work to get myself to a point of like, okay, now I pull this information together. What do I want to do with that? Right. And again, I can make those decisions. I can come up with the options myself. But AI is such a powerful thought partner in
Mhm.
that as well. It can both gather the information, it can give me options, then I can make decisions. And I push back against it regularly, right? It still gets stuff wrong, or it kind of goes off on a tangent because it took one particular word you said and decided that's the most important thing. It's like, whoa, it's not where I was going with this. Kind of let's reset a little. Um, but all that to say is, again, it's helping me. Um, it's sort of accelerating my ability to and freeing up my ability to engage with people in more meaningful ways and
Absolutely.
more thoughtful way, I think.
Uh, I'm gonna look for this in my phone because the thought partner, and let me see if I can pull it up at least for the camera. Um, the thought partner, I think it's crucial, and like these things come up in social all the time. It's like, hey, go to ChatGPT and ask them, to create an image of our relationship. And then it pulls up, a cool image.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to look for it. And this is the thing of this podcast being unscripted. Now I'm trying to look for something, and then the clock is ticking, and I don't want
Okay.
people. Let me just try to find it. But it's interesting how, let's hope, and for people listening, when AI takes over the world, if you, I fully agree with like pushing back with AI,
Mhm.
but I tend to be very cordial.
Mhm.
Say please and thank you, because I don't want the AI bots when they take over the world to
Right.
target me. Um, but it's very important to have AI as a thought partner, and um, as I think through relationships, you know, inbound, before inbound there was outbound, right? And then
Mhm.
HubSpot introduced the concept of inbound. And now
Mhm.
with this podcast, we're now introducing this concept of trustbound. And
Mhm.
when I started my career, I started, of course, doing this, and I learned this when I did outbound. Then I learned that it made the same sense, and it also applied to inbound. And I
Mhm.
feel it also applies to trustbound. And it's the element of deliver value
Yep.
to build trust, right?
Yep.
When you do outbound, when you do inbound as well, you got to deliver value to build trust. And I feel that
Mhm.
with trustbound, it's the same. It's like that is what is going to help you build relationships. Like, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Well, I was as you were talking about sort of the inbound, outbound, and trustbound. What I was reflecting on was the time I was running the Blackstone Launchpad program. That these entrepreneurs would come in and they'd be like, kind of, here's my idea, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm stuck on, here's what I need help with. It was almost like almost every meeting I had would usually trigger me to want to and identify an introduction I could make for them. Right. So I was always making, whether it was to another entrepreneur that was doing something in a similar space, whether it was to a banker, to an attorney, to somebody else. Um, and so I probably over the years, I still oversee the Launchpad, but I don't do the day to day coaching anymore. But I probably
Mhm.
did that for maybe 6 years. So I
Mm.
probably met literally 2 to 3 thousand people that were early stage kind of
Wow.
entrepreneurs. So I
Wow.
probably made at least, because some of those people I would be making three or four introductions, like bankers. There was at least, I had three or four bankers, local bank, local banks, kind of credit unions here that, like, yeah, we're always happy to kind of talk with a new kind of business, a new entrepreneur. So I probably made thousands of introductions, and literally, I can't think of an instance in which sort of somebody was like, no, I'm not going to meet with them. Everyone was like, happy to meet with them. And that was, partly, unfortunate nature of the relationship, the role I had, kind of the institution sort of behind me, but also some of my reputation. But also, I think this goes back to why I bother to have relationships in the first place, is about the community, right? Because
Mm.
mostly these were kind of people in Missoula or in kind of Montana who also shared a vision of saying, how can we create economic prosperity? How do we help the next entrepreneur
Mm.
that comes along? So in some ways, although I was making a request of somebody else to spend time with this other individual, they still saw benefit in that relationship, because if they could help someone create a business that would add something to Montana's economy, that was a good use of their time.
Mm.
So, so I think you're kind of trust bound. It's like, kind of, yeah, there is everyone is still evaluating a little bit what's in it for me, right? But that's
Mm.
not a purely kind of just straight financial bottom line. Can I sell them something, right? Or they're going to buy something from me. So, yeah, no, I love the concept of trust bound.
Yeah. That reminds me of, there's an amazing book I read a couple of years ago. Um, I won't spoil it for you or for anyone. It's called The Five Levels of Leadership. I will spoil it with the question, because this pretty much defined the way how I see life and how I
Mm-hmm.
approach life in business. Uh, and Trustbound and itogai now. And it's like, imagine that you're at the end of your life, uh, and a family member or a friend asks you, what did you do in your life to make a difference in the world?
Mm-hmm.
What would you answer? And I think that's incredibly powerful. The book
Mm-hmm.
is called, can't remember the author, but it's called The Five Levels of Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to follow up on that Trustbound answer with, I guess, with a closing question. But before then, I found the picture, going
Okay.
back to what you mentioned of AI being a thought partner. It's like, check that out. Uh, when like, check that out. If that is not the definition of,
Right.
and for people listening in, I'm sorry that you had to miss this. I'll try to post this. I'm actually going to take another screenshot so that I don't forget about this picture, and I'll post it on LinkedIn when the episode drops, um, so that folks can get a reference to this picture. If that doesn't speak, thought partner, AI being a thought partner. But look at the that robot was pretty scary. Of course, I want that robot to be my friend, not by enemy. That's why I thank AI every time I interact with it. In any case, Paul, when you hear the word trustbound, and I guess we'll close with your thoughts here. When you hear the word trustbound, what comes to mind?
Well, I really focus that there is implicit in good relationships some sense of trust,
Hmm.
right? That you want to have that relationship for good, authentic reasons.
Mm.
Um, and that, obviously a lot of your work, Mauricio, and the focus of Trustbound is ultimately in a sales arena. But as we all know, kind of sales, sales in the kind of the mainstream kind of gets a bad rap, right? It's sort of the foot in the door salesman stuff. But at the end of the day, sales, this is work I've spent, many of those coaching consultations in the Blackstone Ultra with entrepreneurs where it gets to the heart of the value proposition. Right?
Mm.
What is your value proposition? Which is, what's the customer job? What's their pain point? What's the gain that you can create for them? It's so that's so the trust should be in the relationship that, essentially, you're not going to sell someone something they don't need, right? Or you're not going to build a relationship with someone that isn't genuine in terms of you want to contribute something to them and hope that you'll receive something somewhere in through that relationship in whatever format that comes.
Absolutely. Uh, it's all about the relationship. It's all about delivering value to build trust. It's all about trust.
Mm-hmm.
What goes around comes around. Karma's
Yeah,
real. Good karma and bad karma.
yeah.
Uh,
So it's sort of implicit in the referral and the warm introduction, right? Is it
right.
that, like, if I introduce you to someone, I'm essentially saying, look, you can trust that Mauricio is a good guy, right?
Mm.
He's not going to rip you off. He's not going to, um, yeah. That I
Yeah.
and they trust that I wouldn't make the introduction if I didn't think there was some mutual benefit to be
Right.
had from the conversation.
And me as Mauricio, I don't want to fuck up that intro. I don't want to like do bad by Paul. Like
Right,
Paul's doing me a huge favor. The
right.
favor that I asked, or
Mhm.
sometimes I don't ask for it. Paul, the go giver,
Yeah,
proactively just thinks of me as like I don't want to bomb my relationship with Paul. Of course, I'm going to
yeah,
do
yeah.
good by Paul and by that
Well, and
prospect or that person.
the other thought that goes through my mind, it's happened to me recently. I can't remember the specific individuals, but somebody did reach out and say, "Oh, I see that so and so is kind of in your network. Could you make an introduction?" And I was like, "Look, to be honest, I don't really have much of a relationship with them. I'm not even sure." So, but I was then able to say, "But I think this person over here kind of does." Right. So
Mm.
you might want to go reach out to them, or I can introduce you to them, and then they can make that introduction. So that same trust, and, like, I'm not going to sell you a product that doesn't, or a service that doesn't meet your needs. I'm not going to make an introduction to someone that's not an authentic, trust-based introduction, because why would I introduce you to someone who doesn't really know me? There's no value in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is the essence of Trustbound, and that is the essence of this podcast. Paul, any other closing thoughts?
No, I appreciate. It's been a fun conversation to have, so I appreciate you inviting me to join you.
No, man, I appreciate you accepting, and it was such a fun conversation, and uh, no, I appreciate. We haven't known each other for a long time, but I'm just very glad of the relationship that has stemmed from all of our
Yeah,
interactions.
likewise. Yeah, we've had several conversations, and each one I get something out of the conversation. Right, it
Likewise.
drives my
Yeah,
thinking, as well as obviously looking to explore what itogai
yeah,
can do. So,
likewise. If that doesn't scream trust bound, similar to the AI thinking partner, I don't know
mm-hmm.
what does. Paul, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
If this resonated, pay attention to where trust has already been doing the work for you. That's where momentum starts. Learn more at itogai.com. See you next time. I'm Mauricio Suarez, and this is the Trustbound Podcast.